Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show, Digital Business Evolution. I have a dear friend with me today. I'm so excited to be bringing her on, and I can't wait to tell you my personal story that I have with Nicole and how I formally met Nicole. But today we have Nicole Culver. She helps experts create evergreen weekly sales without funnels, expensive ads, or large audiences. She's worked in the online space for the past 11 years. Oh my gosh, 11 years, and figured out exactly what it takes to really build a business with a full time income in part time hours. Nicole believes in building businesses that excite her and energize her, and she gives you the spark that you've been missing. Nicole is a marketing expert, trauma coach, certified master NLP trainer, hypnotist, life coach, EFT practitioner, and breathwork facilitator with a master's in education. Oh, by the way, she's also a mom of three. I don't know how you do it all, but Nicole, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I have to share with the audience. I know I've shared it with you. You were one of the podcast episodes that I was listening to back in the day, back before anybody was listening to podcasts. I had yours on my podcast app as well as Lewis Howe's, and I would drive to work to Dogwood Hill Elementary School, and I'd be listening to your podcast. And back then, you were talking a lot about food because you actually had a food company, which is insane. Fast forward, gosh, probably 7 years from that point, 6 years from that point. And I get into this mastermind 2 years ago with our mentor, and I join the Facebook group and I get a message from you. And first of all, I'm like, oh my gosh, Nicole Culver's in this mastermind. Like, I've known about this girl for years. And you message me and you're like, is your husband Mike? I think I went to college with him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I showed him your picture. He did not remember your face right away, but your husband, Dan, whom we love and adore, also went to Providence College with Mike, and Mike immediately recognized him. So super synchronistic. We ended up in the same mastermind all these years later. You, Dan, Mike, myself, so bizarre, but I feel like you've been in my world for like a decade.
It's so funny to think. I love those moments where you just see like the connection from so many years ago. And if you like, we went to Providence College, and you went to school in Rhode Island too. Like,
Yeah.
obviously like the smallest state. The fact that we're in the same mastermind of 30 people it just shows you like we were meant to connect
Yes,
again.
we were. I'm so excited and grateful that we have. Okay, so you have like 7 million certifications. And when I think of you, I don't think of necessarily, I don't even think of what you do for your business. I think of you in my world, in my context, as someone who really is trauma informed and like super tapped in and just hyper aware and very present. And I've seen you with your beautiful three daughters and how you act with them. And I don't know how you do it all because you are super present to everything and you're sort of building this full-time income while working part-time hours. Is it a facade? How do you do it?
Oh my gosh, such a good question. And it's so funny. I just want to like be clear, and Jess, I know that you know this, but you read off all of those things and I was like, wow, I'm overwhelmed listening to all of those things, but it was like 11 and a half years
Yeah.
of it, you know what I mean? So if you did not eat like one thing every 2.5 years, that's what you get. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And I know you are so focused on growth and evolving. So it was never like I must get through all of these certifications
mm.
before I build the business. It was just always like, how can I be better? How can I support my clients more? And working part-time hours. Today is a great example because my kids are off, right? So where are they? They're in the basement. They're playing. The youngest is 4, so they're a little bit older now. But no, it's not a facade. It's not perfect, but it really comes down to our business is so simple at this point. It's like really a rinse and repeat. Of course, we're like adding more things
Yeah.
on slowly, but it just comes down to those simple things that we do. I will work about, including this, like 2 hours today, and that's it.
Wow. So is this something that's taken you 11 years to figure out, or have you had pivots? Because again, back with the podcast back in the day, you had a food company. So can you just take us back to sort of what the evolution of your business has looked like over the years?
Yeah. What I'll say is the hour container was pretty much always the same. Like I was always pretty much working 15 to 20 hours. Obviously, our income was not where it is. You know, like our
Yeah.
income was not where it is now. At the beginning, all I wanted to do was make $3,000 a month. That was my goal. $100 a day, $3,000 a month. I knew that like that was my first, if I could do this, I can change our family's life because
Yeah.
that's more than groceries every single week. So I knew that would make a big difference. But where I started, fourth grade special ed teacher, went back to integrative nutrition in 2010, 29, we don't say that, 2009, 2010.
We
I
say
did
whatever we
that.
want.
We say we make up words here. So I did that first. I became a health coach. I was doing that on the side. And then I decided my 5th year of teaching that would be like, I'm going to take on some health coaching clients. I'm going to do like the side hustle situation. I'm going to bring in some money. And then over the summer in 2011, I was like, I'm going to build a food company and I'm going to give myself 3 months, some of June, July, August. If I can figure out how to make money from this and health coaching, then I will quit on August 15th. So that's how I started, which
Wow.
is drastically different from where I
Why
am.
the draw to start a food company?
Because I was always baking. I was always baking. It was just something that I loved to do. I enjoyed. I was always bringing things in for my students. I was bringing things in for like the teachers. I mean, you know, teachers will eat anything,
Yeah.
but people were really excited about what I wanted to bake. So
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I feel like I could do this. I have no idea about business. I literally had no idea what I was doing. I was petrified of selling, but it felt like I could do it.
Yeah. Was Dan helping you at this point?
No. Well, I mean, if you talk about he was going to a commercial kitchen with me, like helping me bake, helping me package things, but he was still in corporate.
Okay. So then so then you ended up leaving teaching, and then when did you transition to, because now you're really helping business owners and you have marketing strategy and Dan is an ads expert and you completely have shifted from
Yeah.
packaging up baked goods.
Yeah. Okay. So I did Blissful Eats, which was the name of the food company, until 2018. So it was just about like Isabel's 4.5. I used her birth date was like the quit date, was like the shutdown date of Blissful Eats. We started coaching and consulting in the food industry with other food businesses in 2015, 2016, because people started saying, like, how are we running Facebook ads? Because we were running Facebook ads since like you could run Facebook ads
Oh,
basically with,
geez.
oh yeah, like we were
Yeah.
running like ads. We've been doing Facebook ads. I have a screenshot of our first one somewhere and it's so funny. But we learned how to like make a website and sell things online. Like we were
Wow.
selling things. I remember like the first order we got from someone we didn't know where we had to ship it. And it was like, how did this person find me?
Find
So
us. Yeah.
this is how we got started with ads and email marketing was from our
Wow.
food business. So that is like we started getting asked, how are you selling things on the internet? Basically, how are you doing email marketing? How are you doing ads? So we started consulting. And then in 2016, we did a summit where we had a whole bunch of speakers come in. And then 2018, we were like, we can't do two things at once anymore. We can't be packaging up boxes and consulting. Consulting, you know, you're making
Hmm.
a lot of money and packing up boxes, we were making pennies. So that was like,
And you were having your third child.
and we're having our third child. Yeah.
A little
So,
busy.
and I was trying to stick to 15 to 20 hours. So it was just like, you know, constantly going back and forth between the two businesses. And even though I was only working the constraint of 15 to 20 hours, it was exhausting.
Yeah. Can I put a request in for some baked goods?
You know what? My 10-year-old, she bakes now.
Oh.
And it is like the best thing ever because she's equipped in the kitchen. Like she made banana bread, like
Oh.
healthy banana bread this morning, Fitment in Kitchen banana bread. It's her go-to recipe. I'll give Ashley a little plug there. She's a client. That's her go-to recipe. She makes it like once a week and it's the best.
I love that. Oh my goodness. You can bring some to Arizona next week. I
I
won't be
know.
mad.
I will. I'll have Olivia make it for you.
Amazing. Okay. So 2018, you really start to go all in on sort of business consulting, for lack of a better term. And at
Mm-hmm.
that point, is Dan still in corporate?
No. Oh, that it's like there's so many
I
layers,
know.
right? Dan quit corporate about 3 months after our second was born in 2015, where I was like, I just can't do this anymore by myself. I need either more help in the business or I need more help with the kids.
Mm,
And that's when he was like, okay, I'm going to take a leap. So he was like, okay, I'm going to just get a few clients on the side, like doing consulting, doing more like financial consulting work, because that was his area of expertise. So he secured a company that he was going to do consulting with that would like basically pay our mortgage. So we were like safe, put in his notice at work. And before he left, before his 2 weeks were up, they were like, we can't do it. We had a change in management and they're not on board. So he
wow.
lost that biggest client. So he just came in and there were tough months.
Yeah.
It was hard then, but we were working for ourselves and we knew we could do it no matter how long it took.
Yeah. Incredible. People ask us all the time how it is working together. Do you have any stories or kind of things that you learned working together all these years? Are there any tips that you have? Because it is a huge question from our audience of, I want to work with my spouse or I do work with my spouse and it's really hard.
Yeah, clear roles. I think that's the
Mm,
most clear roles and know when you're like in those roles. It's taken us a long time to figure this out. And I feel like this year has been the smoothest yet after doing this from 2015,
wow.
so clear roles, like know where your strengths are and know like literally each person's zone of genius and really don't try to be in their zone of genius. That's the
Yeah.
most important part. And know I think it's also, side note, really important that you and your partner are working on yourselves individually, because we both have had to build a lot of resilience,
Mm,
because hard conversations have to be had. And I don't know if you have this, but as the CEO and the visionary, sometimes I do have to have hard conversations with Dan where maybe things aren't going how they should be going,
yeah.
or he's not performing, just to be candid. Like
Yeah.
he's not his performance isn't where the business needs it to be.
Sure.
So he has worked really freaking hard on that and has built a lot of resilience to be able for me to be like, hey, can we have this conversation? Are you in a place right now where
Yeah.
you can have this conversation? And I have to be okay if he says no,
No. Yeah. I love that.
and respect that, and know like, okay, but if you say no, like you need to give me a time where you can,
Yeah. Put it on the calendar.
exactly. We have to have this conversation, but if you're not up for it now, that's okay too. So I
Yeah.
think one, knowing your roles, and two, knowing when you're in those roles and then building resilience as an individual,
Yeah.
because we try and just say like it's not about Nicole and it's not about Dan, it's about what the business needs.
Hmm.
So if the bit, like for example, you want to get really granular, and Dan, I've shared this before and Dan's okay with this, but Dan was doing customer service for a while, and there was one particular phone call, and it's also really hard because we both work from home.
Right.
So sometimes it would be like if your boss was outside the door all of the time.
Hmm.
I try not to listen 90% of the time, but one time I heard him on a client, like it was a failed payment call.
Sure.
And he got on the phone, and the way that he handled the call was like not good. And when he walked out, I just said to him, like, so if you did have a boss that wasn't me and they heard that phone call, what do you think would happen right now? And he was like, I'd probably be fired.
Oof.
And I was like, yeah, we have to
Yeah.
figure this out. So I didn't go into it right then besides that. But then the answer was, for the business, he needed to be removed from that role and we needed to find someone to replace him. And we did. And she's been, holy moly, incredible. She does an amazing job. That's her job.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's her job. So Yeah, resilience is really
Yeah.
important.
I love those points and I acknowledge both of you because I know for Mike and I, we've been working on it for a couple of years and there's so many lessons to be learned. And, like anything, there's a lot of noise out there too. So we've been told or taught in different books and podcasts, it's like you have to compartmentalize and you have to have date night over here and the business over there. And, we ultimately have found what works for us and we've done podcast episodes on it. But to your point of the roles being super clear, and also I loved the point that you brought up of asking, like, are you open to have this conversation right now, and then honoring and respecting, I'm actually not, or we do it all the time. It's kind of like, are you cool if we talk about work for a second? Yes. Okay. No. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to push back. You want to unpack that? Like, no, I'm just not. I don't want to talk about it right now. So I love that.
I
Okay.
think it's interesting too, just
Yeah.
to like say about all that like advice. It's like, yeah, we talk about work and we talk about our kids a lot, but like I'm not going to try and pretend that those we don't like those two things. So I'm not going
Exactly.
to be like, no, some book said that we shouldn't talk about work right now, so let's find random things to talk about.
Right.
Like, that's also like fake and not authentic.
Yeah, we agree. I mean, we'll be out on a date night we don't have date nights, but we'll be out to dinner and we'll talk about the business or we talk about the dog because we don't have kids, and it's like, but that's what we enjoy. And
Right.
some of our best ideas have come from like any of us going, taking a shower, going for a walk. So it's very natural that when we're hiking in some really incredible, expansive view of Sedona, we start talking about the business and we come up with a great idea. It just happens to be that we're married and live together. So in talking about talking, I want to talk about conversations. So, something that you and Dan do so beautifully and what you teach is this concept of evergreen weekly sales without funnels, without big audiences, without expensive ads. So, my burning question for you is number one, how are you starting these conversations? But more importantly, because my audience is going to ask, do we need to slide into people's DMs? Is that how you're doing this?
It's so funny because when Dan gets on sales calls, that is a question we're asked a lot. Like, am I gonna have to cold DM people? Like,
Mhm.
we're like, no, no,
So, how do
definitely
you do
not.
it?
Like,
Break it down.
that is not our tactic. And the other thing I want to say is we do have funnels. We just don't have these like complicated, ridiculous funnels that take forever to set up that are like so fancy. Our funnels are really simple. Everything we do is like I'm super direct. I don't know if you know that. Sometimes it's, it's like the gift and the fault, right?
Me or the audience? Because I know it.
I know. So super direct. So I just found in like, first of all, like listening to too many other people, for many years, I got away from like what worked for us, which was always simple sales. That's the bottom line. I tried all these other things. I tried adding complication, I tried adding fancy, I tried adding all things that were not me and were not my zone of genius. And if you looked, our sales were always okay because we always like defaulted back to conversations, but it's
Sure.
not. But if we had like started and just done what we do now, which is what we were doing at the beginning, which is
Mhm.
funny, then we would have, had a lot more growth, but it's fine because it's always a reason. So I want to just be clear that like this is what's worked for us. So that's the bottom line, is find what works for you and be willing to do it over and over and over again until you have better results. But what I find, and I've made this mistake too, is just almost having a fear or being so afraid to share what you do with the world that you make it hard for people to know what you do, know who you help, and know how you help them. So, literally, our conversations that we're having with people just come down to like almost every day across different platforms. It's not like always on Instagram. I'm just like, hey, if you want help with that, send me a DM. It's
Mm.
literally like that simple.
Yeah. It's like removing all the fluff and the flash and the
Mhm.
marketing, and it's like, this is what we do, this is what we sell, and if you wanna buy it, come on in type of thing.
100%.
Yeah. Do you think this, because you're talking a lot about conversations, which I'm on the same page as you. I'm still in the DMs. I talk to everybody. That is not something that I will pass off. I believe, especially as a coach, as a consultant, as a mentor in that capacity, the relationships are the number one most important thing. And whether that's because of lifetime customer value or just purely for your customers to feel seen and heard, or for you to know what's going on in the marketplace and what the demands are, Do you think that these types of conversations are equally as important for someone who sells physical products?
That's a good question. I would say people are buying more from people
Mhm.
than ever. So if your brand does have an element of like a person behind the brand, I think it's gonna how how often I know I've been pleasantly surprised when I've bought something and sent a DM or shared something on social when I actually get a response. It does make you want to buy again from that company. Or if you need help with something and there's an actual human there and you have a great experience with them, like that, no matter what, is going to lead to more sales.
Yeah. It's so frustrating when you have like even a credit card or something that you need to call and you can't get a phone number and you can't get a human on the phone and it just keeps redirecting you in this circle of like goes to your email, go to this website, put your request in and you're like just give me a human.
Right,
It's
right,
so
and
frustrating.
I think that that's where things are going more, and I also think that that's why people are buying from almost smaller coaches, smaller consultants versus, like, big names at this point. Not that they're not the biggest names in the industry, not like sure they're not hurting for sales, but why would you choose, and this is people who are listening's biggest opportunity, why would someone choose to work with you over Amy Porterfield or something? Because you're not going to get Amy Porterfield.
Yeah.
You're just not, but they will get you.
Mm.
So leverage that if you can.
Yeah. How do you scale a boutique model though? Because I agree with you and I'm in the weeds and on the coaching calls and I don't want to give that stuff up. And as we've been scaling the past couple of years, it's always the question that we are sort of challenged by. Not that we are the Amy Porterfields
Mhm.
out there. That's not what our business looks like right now, but you are right. They're enrolling thousands of people at a time. Maybe their programs are only evergreen. You're not going to get on a coaching call with her necessarily. So it's like, can you scale that boutique model where it is Dan having a sales call with you and Nicole doing the coaching?
I believe that it's possible. And I'll tell you how we have done this and how we'll continue to do this, that our clients still do feel like there's a personal element. And one, it came down to, it's actually interesting because I was on the phone with a client this week and she kept telling me that she was like, I just need a Dan. I just need a Dan. But I know this client really well. And that's the point. Like, I have all of our clients on a board over here. And like, I can actually tell you about every single one of their business if they do one thing, which I'm going to tell you what it is. And I said to her, you don't need a Dan. You need, in our business, a Jess, because our Jess is our client success person. Jess is literally in charge of client success. That's her only job, is keeping our clients happy. So we hired her because we knew that Dan could not be Jess. Dan couldn't be in client success because he's doing too many other things. So what we decided to do as we were scaling was we hired Jess and we put her literally in charge of clients. So what is she in charge of? One, she's in charge of every single week, our clients get a tracker that is sent out to them on Fridays every single week. If they fill out that tracker, then they get our personal attention at Tuesday, 11 o'clock. We review their tracker and they get personal correspondence from us if they fill out the tracker.
Mm.
So the other thing she's responsible for is people showing up to calls, because we know in our business, if people show up to one call a week or 3 calls a month, they're going to stay, they're going to renew, and they're going to have insane results. So those two things are her job, is like get more people to fill out the tracker, get more people to show up to calls. And that way that she's like facilitating. So then our clients feel like they're getting our personal attention. And then of course we're doing calls too.
Yeah. I love that. It's similar to what you were saying with you and Dan. It's making sure everyone knows their role really clearly and they stay in that seat. And we're not having two people sit in one seat. One person can sit in multiple seats, but we can't share a seat. Just like if you were actually imagining trying to both sit on the same seat, it's uncomfortable. You get into each other's way. Someone's butt cheek goes numb after a little while, right? So I love that. And I know something that you do really well, which is something that we work on too, and we're really proud of, is not just telling Jess what she needs to do, but then empowering her on your team to say, Jess, get creative with it. Go think of new ways. Don't just come back and tell us that all of a sudden the call attendance is dropping. It's like, go figure out new ways, go do research, go have conversations, come back to us with those ideas and let us know what you want to run with. And I'm sure you would support her in doing those things.
Yeah, 100%. And we're doing a holiday magazine, like sending out physical mail for the holidays.
Ooh,
And I want,
I want one.
I will send you one. I used to do this a lot. Like I would say probably like pre-COVID, I would send out mailers periodically. I haven't done it in a long time. But one of the things I wanted in the holiday magazine was to hear from clients so we can include them in the holiday magazine. So I had a goal of how many clients I wanted to submit for this. And last week I handed it to her. And she actually texted me this morning and she's like, we're 2 past your goal. And like, she's excited
Yeah,
about it.
that's
So
awesome.
I gave her the form, I gave her the spreadsheet, and I was like, this is my goal for this. Can you get people here?
Yeah,
Get
make it
people to
happen.
submit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she did. And now we're 2 past, and we'll probably end up, I'm sure a few more will trickle in, but we met and exceeded the goal already because I was like, can you do this?
That's awesome. I love that. So I want to shift gears a little bit. I know you and Dan talk about this a lot. I've heard you throw it around, and I would love if you'd be open to breaking this down for us. You talk about the rich niche buyer. What is the rich niche buyer? Because I feel like everyone in this digital marketing coaching space finally got a grasp on why niche or niche is so important. And now you're coming in and you're talking about the rich niche, which for me feels like an elevated concept to just niche. So can you break that down and why is it so important?
Yeah. So let me start with saying we taught this yesterday in a presentation, and we taught this at our live event. And it was really cool because at the end of the live event, when we were passing the mic and saying, like, what was your number one takeaway? My mind was blown because every person, we had 25 people in the room, said the rich niche. And I was
Mm,
like, oh, and listen, when your like buyers are talking to you, listen, because I literally went home and 2 days later we had a new opt-in called the rich niche. It was not something we talked about publicly. It
yeah.
was something for the past few months we've been teaching to our clients. And sometimes you're like, is this good? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where you're like questioning, but it took me 20, every person being like the rich niche, the rich. And I was like,
Heard.
message received. I got this new opt-in. The new opt-in is crushing it. So what is the rich niche? Well, we started coming up with this because we started to see a problem, and we started to see this problem with some of our Facebook ad clients and with some of our like peers or colleagues, where the same launch that people have been doing and rinsing and repeating, the performance for the launch was declining and declining and declining over and over again. And no one was talking about this. No one, like, I still to this day, months later, have not seen anyone talk about launch performance down. And I brought it up on the presentation we did yesterday because there was about 115, 120 people on to
Wow.
say, like, have you experienced this? And there was not, obviously, there's people who don't comment, but there was not one person who said, no, I've not experienced this year.
Yeah.
So it's a problem that no one is talking about, and it's because people don't really know what is the solution, what's the alternative to launch performance declining. And the alternative is the rich niche. And it's not like, oh, these are only the wealthy people. That's not at all what it is, but it's about talking to the person who are your buyers right now. It's about how to bring in high quality leads who are ready to buy. Continuing that, with what we're seeing now is that there's buying behavior has changed online, and we all know that there's some things that you go on Instagram or you go on Facebook or you go on Amazon that you're willing to spend money on immediately.
Sure.
You don't need to like do a sales page. You don't need to read the sales page. You're just like, I'm in. But then there's some things that you're like, I need to think about this.
Mhm.
I need to connect with the person. I need to learn more. And then there's the binge situation where you're just like, I think I need this. So I'm going to go and I'm going to consume as much as I can, and then I'll make a decision. So what we've boiled it down to is there's 3 different types of buyers on the internet or in life, whatever. But most people are only talking to one type of buyer in the launch system. And it's problematic right now because one, you're only talking to the slow buyer. You're only talking to the buyer who needs to consume a lot of information before they make a decision. And two, the launch is only on the launcher's timeline. It has nothing to do with the individual person, which is a problem because right now, everyone understandably is worried about themselves. They're on my timeline. If I know after this, I'm done working for the day, I got to be with my kids, I'm not getting back on to watch a 5 o'clock training for 3 days.
Right.
I'm just not. So what we have boiled this down to is we have different types of funnels actually set up for different types of buyers. But the rich niche is like that first step of just like, how do you attract high quality leads? Who are the fast buyer? Who are the people who are ready to buy now? In your launch, you're usually talking to that large segment of your audience. What we teach people to do is let's zero in on the rich niche. That's your first step before you worry about the other type of buyers. So we figure out who's ready to go now. And that's how you avoid frustrations.
Does your messaging actually change when you're talking to these different buyers?
I would say it's very nuanced, and it comes down to like the analogy, which I'm sure you've heard, is like when you're at the airport and they're talking to the whole plane versus when they're saying, Jess, you need to come up to the counter now.
Mm.
It's so slight, but it's everything because now you're talking to the specific person. And what I equate that to is just like having your name called out at the loudspeaker, where you're just like, oh my gosh, I better sit up and pay attention, or I better walk up to that counter
Yeah.
because they're talking to me.
Yeah. So we teach a lot of organic marketing. I mean, we only started playing with ads in the last year. And so we've built our entire company organically. And then, that's what we teach our clients typically. So we're very content heavy rather as opposed to ads heavy. In terms of your content leading up to a launch or in a launch, how would you say you can best speak to these sort of different people? Or are you really only talking to your rich niche in your content?
You can do both. You can do both. It will work better if you just talk to your rich niche, because what happens is the interesting thing is like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I'll just use one specific to us is like we started to our rich niche is people who are launching, who've had successful launches, who want to add in evergreen because they want an additional easier revenue stream. But what happens is we're talking to that like elevated niche. People who are in the other segments of our audience, they want to be there, so they listen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But the people here who are your best buyers, who are your like elevated buyers, for lack of better terms, your rich niche, they're not going to listen when you're talking in your other quadrants because that's not for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you talk to the one, you kind of get the other people anyway because they aspire to be like that. And they might not be ready to buy, and that's totally okay because we nurture them. But when you talk to the rich niche, you still get the other three, because we break it down into 4 different segments. You get the other 3 segments in. But if you don't talk to the rich niche, you're not going to get your ready to go buyers.
Yeah. Is there something that you have you're so brilliant when it comes to mindset, for lack of a better term, and rewiring these thoughts and patterns and kind of pathways that we have? It's really easy for someone listening right now. Conceptually, I understand, and I wish they could see you because there's a quadrant and the 4, and we can use our hands. But Nicole, I'm so scared I'm going to leave these people out. I understand what you're saying, and there's always going to be those additional buyers that come in. I can't think of the word that I want to use, but you're always going to get those strugglers. But is there something that you can tell our audience that's listening right now who still has this little gremlin in the back of their head going, yeah, but you're leaving all these people out, or so much of your audience is the person who's actually not the rich niche. You have all these people who want to learn from you. You have all these beginners. You have all these people who, but I want to help the people who aren't ready to invest yet. Do you have some sort of a mindset reframe for them, the business owner, to say, yeah, but if you think of it this way, now, boom.
Yeah. I was asked this question yesterday on that live training because the person said there are so many, my clients get all of these results. So how am I supposed to pick one?
Mm.
And it's the same kind of thing. And if you, the first answer is, do you want better results? Because chances are, if you're listening right now, it's probably up and down, and you're probably not hitting your goals. And it's kind of like you're having mediocre results or lackluster results. And this, when you speak directly to that person, have you ever had someone who talked to you and you're like, that's me. You just read your mind. Or when you get a piece of content and you're like, yes, that's exactly me.
Yeah.
You're validating and you're seeing when you speak specifically to that one person, you're seeing them and that's what they need from you. But if you're all over the place, it's confusing
Yeah.
and you have to ask yourself, if you go all in on this one segment and you can help and impact more people and you can help them get better results, is that worth it to you? Or do you want to keep diluting yourself down and speaking to everyone?
Mm, it's so good. I was listening to months ago an Alex Hermosi podcast, and he was talking about who was he talking to? Dean Graziosi, I believe. And Alex didn't want to be famous. He didn't want to be known. He didn't want to be seen. And here he was building and selling businesses in the background, like really doing it with no social media presence. And he sort of came up to this fork in the road, for lack of a better term. And Dean Graziosi basically said something like that to him, where it was like, look, is the juice worth the squeeze if people now know your face, but you're actually helping? Think about how many more people you're helping when they do know your face. And so, he sat with that and he's like, if I'm really here for the impact and I want to make a difference and I want to help people and share and teach and help people navigate the mistakes that I've made, then yeah, it is worth it for me. So let me show my face. And we can all see now, and 18 months later, what he's built. And he already had the actual businesses and the
Right.
skill set, and the teams. And now it's the social media platforms to go along with it. Hundreds of thousands of followers and subscribers and millions of people buying his book. And it's like everybody knows who he is now, and he's helping so many people. And so it's to me, it's very similar to that, where you're sort of at this fork in the road of, yeah, maybe you do leave a couple of people out. But to your point, to flip it, also the people who aren't ready or who aren't there or who don't have the fill in the blank yet, well, now they aspire to get there. And that's huge, because what you could be doing for that person just by even giving them that aspiration, by being an expander, by showing them what's possible, by dangling a carrot in front of them that they can't yet get into or they're not there. I know for me, that's literally how I got into Chris Harder's mastermind years ago. Was I was a teacher when he hosted his first round of his mastermind. I didn't have a business, and you needed to be making $500,000 to get into his mastermind. And so when I was a teacher, I committed to, I will be in Chris's mastermind, whether it was going to take me a year, 2 years, 3 years, and just about a year later, boom, I had done it. I was in his mastermind. But it was a thing that I wanted and I aspired to do. And so then I had to reverse engineer, what do I need to do to get there? So I love the idea of a rich niche.
I also think it's so interesting because has anyone ever said, you're leaving me out? Like it is this idea in our head that we're like, oh, I'm so afraid of leaving people out. Has anyone ever said that to anyone? Or is it like this made up thing? Because I
Mm,
can help and you can help. We can help a lot of people. I've had a local business. I've helped brick and mortar businesses. I have one-to-one clients who literally have a multi-million dollar pool company. Is that who I talk to online? No. Has she been with us for years? Abso-freaking-lutely. Did she recommit for 2023? Absolutely. So you're not leaving anyone behind. That's like such a made up notion, I
yeah,
think. Like you're talking directly to the person who you can help.
yeah.
And I've had so many DMs from people who are like, I can't wait to work with you, not angry at me that I'm
Mm, you don't have something for me.
exactly.
Yeah. It's such an interesting little shift. And yeah, I just love it. And I also see the rich niche as it's sort of the thing in the window, when we're walking down the street in New York City and we're walking past all the shops on Fifth Ave, it's like there's stuff on the mannequins or there's stuff in the window that initially draws you in. But when you go into the store, they've got tons of other stuff in there too. And it
Mhm.
might be for you and it might not be for you. But the thing in the window is the thing that draws you in. And that is for the rich niche. Yeah. I love it. I could talk to you all day. I mean, fun fact, we actually talked for a half hour before we hit record. So I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I do have a couple final questions for you. And before we get into those final questions, where can people find out about you and Dan and the Rich Niche, and how can they learn from you? Where can they connect with you?
Easiest place is Instagram, just my
Yeah.
name, Nicole Culver. And then if you go to the bio, we have the Rich Niche download. If you want to actually
Ooh,
watch the training, watch me draw it out, just click the link in my bio and I'll take you there into my podcast.
amazing. And we'll drop that in the show notes too. What fun, exciting things do you have coming up? We're closing out the year here. What do you guys have planned for 2023?
Oh my gosh. What do we have planned? More live events, which I'm
Yay!
super, super pumped about. Our program, we've been running our program as it is for the longest time. Like we've ever stuck with one thing, which was my goal at the end of 2022. Like our program's called Elevate. I'm just going to do this. So it's a lot of rinse and repeating and elevating more, but I'm so excited to just be doing one thing. It has simplified our life so much.
Mm,
And live events. We just hosted one around the same time you did in Sedona. And oh my gosh, being in the room with people, it's just like I didn't forget, but I did forget
yeah.
a little bit, just like the power of if you did nothing, I think over the 2 days, besides connected with people, there would be a transformation.
Yeah.
It's just so impactful.
It
It's
really is.
insane.
It really is. And that's why we keep investing in masterminds. There's just something magical about it. The connection, the network, the other brains to brainstorm, people to support your crazy stupid idea. Have you ever experienced, this is kind of as we go into some rapid fire questions, have you ever experienced people in your life, maybe friends, family, that don't really get what you're doing, who don't really, not that they don't support you, but do you find that there are people in your life who you can have these conversations about NLP or conversations about landing pages and conversions, and then there are people that you just can't?
I would say the only people I can have the conversations with are people I've met through masterminds.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, just flat out, that's the honest truth. I've met some of like my business besties from every single mastermind I've been a part of. And yeah, it's not, I feel like my family and friends for a while, I don't know that they understand what I do now,
Yeah.
but I think they more understand it than ever before. But I just can't have the same conversations. It's a level of like getting it that
Hmm.
I don't have in my real life that I have in masterminds.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And it would be not wrong. There's no right or wrong, but it would be wrong for us to expect them to even want to have
Mhm.
those conversations with us. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
it's a
I
totally
I
different
say
world.
that every Monday I host a mindset call with Elevate, and someone asked that question. And I was like, they don't know what to do with you. Like your reality and their reality are so different. You
Yeah.
can't expect them to understand where you're doing. And plus, by the way, most of us are right, like completely different
Yeah.
people and humans. And that's also mind blowing for people because they don't understand why you aren't the same person you were when you were in college or high
Mm,
school, because most people are. And there's
yeah.
nothing right or wrong, good or bad about it. It's just most people don't know what to do with us.
Yeah. I had a college roommate. This was now years ago, but I was still tinkering with, entrepreneurship at the time. I think I was probably still working full time as a teacher and then had my quote unquote cute side hustle. She had messaged me and in a really nasty tone had said like, "You've changed." And I was like, "You haven't." It was just like I'm not better than you, but like I'm so grateful
Right.
that I've changed. It's been 8 years since college. So, I love that. All right, a couple rapid fire questions. Are you down?
Yeah.
What are you currently reading or listening to?
Oh no. Oh my gosh. What am I current? Well, I just 100, I would say $100 million offers. Alex Hermosi is probably the last book I read. I read so much over the summer, but then once the summer stops, I'm in this like almost like a silence period. I don't know if
Yep.
you ever go through that where you just don't consume.
Mhm.
Sometimes it just gets a little too overwhelming for me, and I'm big silence right now. That
Yeah.
is like occasionally I'll listen to Alex Hermosi's podcast. That's probably, I'll leave it at that. Alex Hermosi's
Yeah.
podcast
Yeah.
and a lot of silence.
Okay. I love that. And you can catch Nicole in a beach chair on the beach reading over the summer. She's literally there every single day.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
Jess, these are really hard questions for me. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm not a movie person.
Okay,
I'll
so
tell
favorite
you,
activity with the girls on a Friday night.
Oh, pizza. We go out to pizza every Friday night, pizza, and then some type of dessert. That's amazing.
Toppings? Do you put toppings on your pizza?
No, just
Yeah,
cheese.
just regular.
Unless it's like a white pizza. We go to like a brick oven pizza place, and sometimes we'll get like one margarita, one white pizza with prosciutto.
I love it. And for the listeners, you are in New York, so it is the best pizza in the country.
Yes.
Don't come at me.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Best piece of advice you've been given.
Follow your bliss. That's honestly where it all started for me with that quote, which is why my company was Blissful Eats. It was a quote that my co-teacher had put. I was like trying to come up with a name for my food business. And I was working with my co-teacher, and I was sitting on a prep. Did you ever work on your prep, like on your
Are you
business?
kidding? That's all I did. That's when I knew
know.
it was time to quit. I'm like, this isn't
Yes.
fair to anybody.
100%. So I'm like trying to figure it out. I'm like looking around the room, and she walks in, my co-teacher, from going to the bathroom. She shuts the door behind her, and follow your bliss was behind the door on a quote. And I was like, bliss, that is it. And I feel like that quote has followed me around, just like whenever I need to like be really grounded in where I'm going. So
Well, these are supposed to be rapid fire, but I
I
have
know,
to,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm saying for me, because I have to take this to another level. I want to unpack something here. For the listener, how can you distinguish or discern between bliss and then something just being new and shiny and exciting?
Well, I will tell you, I try, because I've done it before. I never make emotional decisions. So I don't make anything on a split high or low. That's really important. Like for me, and I know probably human design people will tell me, oh, it's because you're this. And I don't know the words for that, but I have to come down and I have to make a grounded decision, because especially as the visionary, I don't know if you do this. Dan now has full permission to say no, because I will have crazy ideas. I'll be like, let's start an app. And he's like, no. And now I know it's like, I need to sit with it, and really, like, anything that's new and shiny needs like a 3 to 5 day incubation period before I commit to it. Because honestly, most things, especially this year, because we know like we have really big goals and really focused on the amount of people we want to impact, most shiny things are not going to get us there. It's the foundational things that we come back to every single week. And sometimes it is so boring every week. So boring.
Louder for the people in the back.
So yeah, it's so boring. So I find my excitement like having conversations and doing things like this. So I don't even remember the initial, but my answer is don't make emotional decisions. Don't make decisions on a high or low, and make sure it will actually be the thing that's going to get you to your goals.
Yeah, I love it. All right, 2 last questions. Hypothetically, if I were to cut you a check for $50,000 tomorrow, how would you use it in the business?
How would I use it? Ads.
Yeah. Easy enough. I would expect nothing less from you. I would have to text Dan and let him know if you said anything different. So the last question we end with all of our guests is that our businesses are a reflection of us, and they're always growing as we're always growing and evolving. And so we named the podcast Digital Business Evolution because we're always evolving. So what is your next business or personal evolution?
That's why we're called the Shift Show for the podcast. Like, same thing, like always shifting. I would say my evolution is getting really uncomfortable being seen, because I'm a hider. I will hide all day long, which I think sometimes people who see me sometimes on social media would be surprised, and probably for you too. I could hide and not show my face on social media ever again, but I do it because of the impact I want to make, and I'm committed to that. So it's a habit, me showing up. So being seen.
I'm excited to see that, because I would love some more Nicole in my life. Nicole, thank you so much for being here. I adore you and Dan both, and I'm just super grateful for you sharing so much of your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, and your stories with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
As always, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.